Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I'm here with a special guest, Supertanskii. Supertan, can you tell us a bit about yourself before we jump into the wonderful topics of tonight, which, of course, are flags and what people shouldn't be doing with them? Is Keir Starmer truly holding Nigel Farage to account and pushing back, or is it the other way around? We're going to talk about Donald Trump being dead, but it seems he's alive and kicking, or at least his clone is alive and kicking. And we can talk about some other things. And of course, you guys make the stream, you guys in the chat. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask Supertan or myself, throw them in as a super chat, or I'll try and keep an eye on the chat anyway. And I want to say thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job before and after, as always. So, Supertan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for anyone who's been living under a rock over the last number of years?
You've been living under a rock. Well, for the last 5 years, I've been making increasingly exasperated political videos. Started off on TikTok, but now all my video content is here on YouTube. So it's Supertanskii Free Eyes. Don't ask about the pseudonym. I regret it every single day. But yeah, and I do a regular Sunday stream on here on YouTube too, called Supertanskii Sunday Service. So if you ever want to see me freestyle, that's where you can find me.
And you always start out with a dystopia warning. Where did that come from?
That came from like during the height of like the Omni scandals that were like occurring under the last Tory government. It came from me having to put a warning on, like a trigger warning on for people. But I couldn't call it a trigger warning. So I just called it like a dystopia warning to just warn them that something was going to happen that was going to be shocking, or at least free in a day at one point. And yeah, it just stuck. Like people asked me where it was if I didn't say it. So I was backed into a corner of having to give dystopia warnings before every single show. So yeah, it's stuck, and it is still needed.
Yeah, it is certainly because things are not going so well. So what's your take on what's happening with Keir Starmer? So we all had high hopes. You know, the Tories were kicked out. Things would get better. Like, I don't know if most people know the song from the 1990s. Things can only get better. Things did not really get all that much better. But what's your take on what would you like to see happen going forward?
Oh, goodness me. Well, the Blue Labour strategy is just disastrous. I don't know what on earth they're thinking with that. And his reaction to the kind of vacuum that's being left by kind of decent, bold vision and policy is being increasingly filled by the far right. So I think we were all hoping for a bit more kind of affirmative action. Last summer, they were pretty good in terms of responding to the race riots. Like, I thought that was quite a good approach from them. They were pretty sharp with it. And since then, they seem to have kind of bent to the will of the kind of radicalization process that I feel is happening at the moment with Farage and the far right. So we're in a situation where there's like this gulf and this vacuum, and instead of filling it with some kind of bold vision of their own, because they've kind of eschewed populism, they are just filling it with nothing. And as we all know, if there's like any form of like vacuum, whether it's like a speculation vacuum, the tabloids will be on it. So we've got this kind of like, I'd say oppositional vacuum, because they've been put firmly on the back foot. Because what Farage projected at being like a 400-seat landslide by one poll this week,
yeah,
like 35% versus 20 for Labour. So we're in a situation where I think they don't know how to react. They're following this Blue Labour line, which is almost like continuity Tory with a lot of policy.
Yeah, there's that guy. What's his name? Lord
Morgan McSweeney,
Morgan McSweeney and Grassman or Graceman.
Maurice Glassman,
yeah,
who is a lord, a kind of lord who's pushing this. And I think we've got like we're going to have to see how Darren Jones does in the role that he's been appointed to, because he's been put in charge in the mini reshuffle of like handling Keir Starmer's priorities. But like everyone else, I'm like, what the are his priorities? Like,
you can swear, it's okay.
I had to mute myself then, because what are they? What are they? Because yeah, it's I'm really disappointed, and I think that not only is it weak-willed, it's dangerous. We're seeing like horrible racist attacks happening daily. Just today, I saw in Portsmouth, two young Muslim men were attacked with nearly attacked with a knife by a man who was shouting, "We want to protect our kids." They handled it with so much humility. An NHS nurse was screamed at in a park. Sky News was interrupted the other day with this. It is like worse than Brexit before Brexit, and there is no sign of Labour curbing it. Like they had every opportunity when they came back from recess,
Yeah.
and all Keir Starmer said was, "I've got a flag in my house." Brilliant, mate.
We'll get to the flags a little bit later, of
Oh
course.
God, yeah.
But I just want to say thanks to Brad for that super chat. Come out to Max and Tan. You Black and Tans is a rebel song. The Black and Tans from about 100 years ago in Ireland, and a nice bunch of lads. Yeah, this thing about Woodstock. Yeah, so there was an opportunity after after Parliament was in recess to come back and do something positive. And one of the first interviews I saw, I think it was literally one of the first interview by a government minister. He was asked about people attacking a Chinese restaurant. There was a Chinese restaurant that had graffiti all over it, and the guy was asked about it, and he started talking about, we have to go further and faster, and we have to rebuild the foundations, because he obviously had just been given his talking points, and I saw this and I was like, where is the humanity? Like a normal person, if you're told about graffiti, telling Chinese people to go home, attacks on immigrants, your normal reaction would be, this is terrible, we need to do something about it. And his reaction was, okay, what do I have to say? Yeah, stick to the talking points. They need, I don't know if it's a lack of competence, or if it's a disconnect, or what the problem is. I don't know if you remember some years ago, and then I'll let you talk. It was just, I don't know if you remember some years ago, Therese Coffey was interviewed by Sky News. And this is something it'll remain with me till the grave, or the grave of this channel. I don't know which will come first. But it's she was interviewed on Sky News, and Kay Burley, who used to work at Sky News, she was asking her about a situation where a woman had died of starvation because she had her benefits cut off, and it was no fault of her own, or irrespective, I'm not sure why the benefits were cut off. There was a mistake or something, and the woman died. She died of starvation.
Christ.
And Therese Coffey's response was, yes, but we have, you can apply for benefits this way. You can go to the job center. I was like, yeah, but we're talking about somebody who's literally died. And she was completely disconnected. I think there's a real need for people just at least to listen to the question that's been asked, or the point that's been raised, and respond to it in a human way.
Yeah, I think to some extent, once you get into government and you get into those roles, you do get that kind of like weird distance. A lot of them seem to lose that humanity and that feeling of being in touch. And it's weird with this government, because we've got actually one of the most working class governments we've ever had, but that doesn't carry. I find that doesn't come across from the people that you see.
So, as you said, like Angela Rayner is literally working class, and she's been attacked by, the owners of newspapers, these people who are with offshore bank accounts and huge tracts of land, and not paying their taxes. And these people are going after Angela Rayner because she, I think the optics are bad, but she didn't do anything wrong. She didn't break any laws when she bought a second home.
No.
But of course they're going after her. They're going after the working class because they know that, well, we don't want these people succeeding. We don't want them putting in policies that help ordinary people.
No, it's like disturbing, and especially some of the people that were going after Angela Rayner, like Jacob Rees-Mogg's sister. And it's like, remind me, I actually replied to her, I said, remind me, was Jacob Rees-Mogg investigated, over Somerset Capital and, all that stuff where he used dividends to put down £6 million payment on his fucking Saltburn castle? Was that a thing? Anastasia, or whatever her name is, some mad, mad literary name. Yeah, it smacks of double standards, and like a lot of them are running around acting like they were never even in government, like Jenrick, like criticizing the former government. It's like, mate, you're an immigration minister, and arguably you presided over one of the worst child trafficking scandals ever. Your former government, when like 200 kids went missing, likely trafficked from these hotels that you were responsible for. It's like.
And it was Robert Jenrick in 2022 talking about the value of putting people in hotels. He said, we have to put people in hotels. It's much safer than keeping them in detention centres. And now he's front and center going, we need to close these hotels. They're a disaster. And of course, the Tories don't have a solution to this. They're like, close the hotels. Okay, and where do you put the people? Close the hotels. That's all they can say.
Yeah.
They have literally no response. Well, we might put people in camps at some stage. Where do you put the camps? We'll concentrate them in camps. That's what we'll do. But where do you
already done that?
Yeah, where are you going to put these camps? Not in my backyard, anyway. I just want to read a super chat from Ivan. Thanks so much, Ivan, for that. So this one may be a bit spicy. So he says here, Zach Polanski, with his far left populist rhetoric, saying that the world that he would leave NATO, the Green Party, the national security at risk. Sorry, Green Party, national security at risk and energy infrastructure, but not in their backyards. Dangerous and utterly hypocritical. Okay, so what's your... So I know you've been quite busy talking about Zach Polanski today. So first of all, what's your reaction to Zach Polanski becoming leader of the Green Party? We may have a bit of a disagreement on this, but I think it's interesting
I mean, it's not even necessary. I mean, that is a ridiculous idea on his part. And it's in the same way that I had like massive disagreements with Corbyn over Trident. You can't get rid of it whilst everyone else has got it, was my view on that. I mean, leaving NATO is a mental idea. I just personally am not a big fan. I mean, I just don't have I have some personal kind of like beef with him, but it's more the fact that I just don't feel like he's a particularly good fit for the Greens. I just don't, there's something about him that I just don't trust personally, in the way that he comes across. It's very stage managed. It reminds me a lot of Tony Blair.
Okay.
So it kind of feels a little bit like I'm naturally not inclined to be very trusting of populist figures anyway. But I know that there is a difference between populism and popular. I know that he's quite a popular choice amongst the Greens, and I have absolutely no qualms with the Greens. But I think that obviously he's trying to kind of slot himself in and create a vision for himself with this, which is fair enough. I mean, everyone's got to find their path on it. But I just don't think he comes across as very genuine. It feels a bit media trained, a bit acting school, bit, that kind of vibe I get from it. But I don't have any personal, like, despite the fact that there's been there was previously a thing online that we had a bit of a spat once. I don't have anything personally against him. I just get a feeling from him that I just don't really trust him particularly. So it's totally subjective. It's not like a kind of like massive critique of his politics necessarily. So I guess it is partially personal, but I don't know. I mean, I have to admit, due to the influx of the far right, I've been not really paying an enormous amount of attention to fringe parties like the Greens, and I know that also there's a whole mess of stuff going on with the rise of your party, which is going to kind of bugger up the momentum. But I did really like Carla Denyer. I had a lot of time for Carla Denyer. And she was really nice when I met her, and really clear and really passionate about what she kind of stood for. I just don't get the same vibe from Zach. I mean, he might surprise me. You never know. But I think that policy is insane, frankly.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that policy, but I don't know if this is something that has changed with him. Like, I interviewed him some months back, or about a month.
Did you?
Yeah, I interviewed him for the channel when he was running as a candidate, and I got questions from the channel to ask him, and he was really nice, and I wasn't able to speak to him for a long time. We may more or less jumped on straight away, but he came across as a really nice guy to me. But once again, I don't know that much about him, but for me, I preferred him to the other candidates because I understand what you're saying when you say that he doesn't come across as very authentic, but on the other hand, I think they need some energy in the Green Party, and they're seen as boring and as middle of the road, and I did a video where I was talking about the other candidates, and their pitch video was them standing in front of a tree, both of the candidates, and they were like, and you must vote for us because we believe in everyone, and everyone should be treated with respect.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, yeah, this probably would have worked like 20 years ago, but now we have Farage, and you have to, I don't like the idea of, going down to Farage's level, but Farage says stuff and then everyone reacts to it. And I think what I saw with Zach was he was saying stuff and people were reacting to it, and he was grabbing attention. And unfortunately, the whole media system is broken. Like you see Richard Tice on TV every fucking day. He was on Sky News 3 days in a row, I think, this week. And Reform have 4 MPs. Where the hell are the Liberal Democrats? The Liberal Democrats, at least Ed Davey, during the election was acting the maggot, as we say in Ireland. He was messing about, but he was grabbing people's attention. And then he was also talking about important issues like caring and carers and stuff like that. But unfortunately, there is a sort of TikTok mentality with voters where they have an attention span of like 10 seconds and you need to grab it as much as possible. It shouldn't be like that. I'm a huge advocate for voting based on policy, not on personality.
Yes.
And I was tearing my hair out. I have nothing left. I was tearing my hair out in 2019 where, people were saying, I'm going to vote for Boris. And it's not, you're not even in his frigging constituency. You're not going to vote for him. You're going to vote for his party. And then the policy will come after. And I think the cult of personality is a huge thing to be concerned about. And I hope there isn't one in Zach Polanski's Green Party. I think he should be somebody pushing policies. But maybe while I hate the cult of personality, maybe it's a little bit necessary to grab people's attention. I'm very mixed about this.
I'm with you though, to some extent. Like, I do agree with you. Like, you definitely do need to. And I agree with you with the juxtaposition of Ed Davies, kind of like, as you say, I don't know what that phrase is. I've never heard of it before. But
in Ireland, we say acting the maggot is like...
Acting the maggot, acting like a clown.
Exactly, yeah.
Playing the clown. So he was doing that, and then he would come in with this really kind of like sincere, disarming, beautiful story about carers and really push the key point. And I thought that was amazing. I get what you're saying. You do have to have like a lot of energy. And we're seeing at the moment with Labour what happens when there's a vacuum in terms of like a populist figure. Or at least someone that's able to command a room and command or push a vision or sell a vision.
Yeah.
So if he can do that for the Greens, more power to him. Like, I don't have any problem with the Greens. Like, when we did the tactical vote campaign in the general election and the locals, we did that not to get Labour in. We knew the limitations of first past the post, but we also got a lot of Greens over the line and a lot of Lib Dems over the line. So it was like progressive parties. But yeah, you do need that with when you're taking on Farage, because they just command the spotlight and they get views, and he is quite popular, I think, amongst young voters. So maybe I need to kind of like put my personal feelings to the side a little bit, possibly, on this, and have a bit of humility.
No, well, I think we can separate. We can support the party as opposed to the individual at the head of it, because as I keep saying, like, it should be about the policies, not so much about the personalities. And at the end of the day, when people vote, it's the policies that will impact their lives more than, like with Reform, people are voting for Nigel Farage, but they don't even know his policies. And when he gets into, if he gets into power, I shouldn't jump ahead there.
Oh God, don't.
If he gets into power, he's going to implement policies that are going to harm the most vulnerable and benefit the richest people. And then people will ask, oh, wait a minute, why did I vote for this guy? In the same way as, people voted for Boris Johnson.
Too late.
Yeah, it's too late at that stage. We have a comment from Brad. Thanks so much, Brad. If it wasn't for the sex tape McSweeney has on Starmer, none of this will be happening.
Flippin' heck. Are we getting into like the deep fake territory already? Like, I said this in a video the other day. I said, if he doesn't get a grip on like Reform, God, they're clever, aren't they, the bastards? They've used the word that you use to describe any type of policy change. But if they don't deal with regulation of media and social media, it's not just going to be people claiming that he's having an affair with Lord Ali. It's going to be like videotapes of it happening.
Yes.
And it's going to get to like that extent. But it's... God, what a time to be alive, Max.
Yes. But like, how do we counter stuff like that? Because I've been trying to understand. Okay, what can we? Because facts are not enough. Because there was a video posted online of I think it was like Angela Rayner or Keir Starmer or someone standing on a beach. It was an AI video, of course, and them like welcoming asylum seekers in a small boat. And the quality of the AI was fantastic. It was perfect. obviously you know it's AI. We know it's AI, but an older generation would look at that and probably think it's a real video.
Mm.
And we can say no, that's false, it's fake, it's not real. But people unfortunately approach these things from emotional point of views, and
Yes.
I don't know how do we push back on that. It seems almost impossible, because all Farage has to do, and I've mentioned this on my own channel before, Farage attacked the Labour leader in Scotland some months back. He took a clip of him talking to a group of Pakistani people in Edinburgh or in
Yeah.
Glasgow, and he took the whole. I showed the whole video on my website, on my channel. So the video goes on for about 3 minutes, and he's talking about Pakistani doctors, nurses, people working in the community, what they've contributed. And then towards the end, he says, if we want to have influence, I don't remember the exact phrase, but he talked about how, Pakistanis need to have an influence in society, they need to have an influence in politics. And Farage took that small part and then shared it on social media, amplified it, got millions of views. And then, of course, he was challenged about it, and he said, I didn't lie. That's what he said. And I don't know how do we push back? Maybe I'm asking you a question that nobody has an answer to, but it'd be great to get your opinion anyway.
Pushing back, right? Okay, it depends really, because I'm not going too far. I think I'm underestimating it when I say that people are legitimately radicalized. And I said this a couple of months back. It's no different from the way that kind of like jihadis are radicalized. It's an ideology. They're radicalized into an ideology. They use the same methods of targeting people that maybe don't have a lot going on in their lives, that are vulnerable to some extent, that are bored, that are poor, and then giving them like strong emotions like fear, um,
Purpose,
hatred.
purpose,
But yeah,
community also.
it provides a purpose, and it provides that weird kind of like homo romantic, it's called, where like men need this brotherhood, this thing where they kind of like respect other men more, and they need this kind of like thing and this thing to fight for, maybe it doesn't even fall into that bracket. But so when you've got something like that, and it's eroding kind of like any form of unified resistance amongst the poor, and separating the working classes, and creating endless distractions, and when people are motivated by fear and division and hatred, like they're really motivated to give money, to go to protests, and to get involved with things. So the people that are already radicalized, you would need something to de-radicalize them, which would help if there was some form of like resistance or opposition from the government, to the way of thinking, because that would be kind of like a solid route to providing facts. And for that, you would need media regulation, and you would need social media regulation. I think the only people that we can go for at the moment are the people that are not yet radicalized. That's our only hope at the moment, because the people that are already lost to this, unless Labour acts, and even if they do, like people don't really trust politicians anymore. And that's why they think, bizarrely, that like Farage and Reform, etc., are an alternative to the political class.
Yeah.
They were all Tory members.
Yes.
They were all Tory supporters and voters prior to them setting up their kind of cash cow in Brexit, and Farage having his cash cow in the EU, where he got to hang out with loads of far right leaders and got to form allegiance with them and got to take home loads of money and just do nothing and never turn up. So I think the only thing that we can do is try and focus on those people that have not yet been got. But the problem is, because social media makes it so easy to radicalize people, it's an extraordinary rate at which people are getting radicalized every day. And everyone's addicted to their phones, everyone's looking at their phones, and it's terrifying, because it's not just politicians either. It's these fringe figures like billionaires, like that own social media apps, on which you can actually get away with saying hard racist words now and face no pushback. And obviously Meta, Zuckerberg's, fallen down the Trump hole, hasn't he?
Yes.
So it's people get most of their news from like Google, TikTok, disturbingly, Meta, all the places that are compromised and not impartial and have very little regulation going on inside themselves, because they want to promote this free speech, regardless of consequences. And I think there's also a bit of a kind of like technocracy element to it, of techno-feudalism, people call it, like where it's like they're the new lords basically, and they want to do away with democracy. That's a really deep answer to what you asked me, but I think in short, try and reach the people that are still reasonable. That's our only hope at the moment. Or keep a community of people on board that already know that this is all a load of bollocks. Because the people that know this is a load of bollocks are managing to not be deterred by £1 billion radicalisation scheme. So they're evidently clever. But yeah, that's the best we can hope for, I think, possibly.
I think also another is if there are people who have been de-radicalized, and we've seen it with radical Islam, or we've seen it with far right groups in the past, where people who had gone through it had come out the other side and went,
yes,
I can't, I'm actually going to fight this now because I know what has happened. I know it's been done to me, and I know how to push back. So those people are huge assets. I think there have been a number of people online who've been talking about this. So if we can reach out to those people, tap into what goes on. They know the language, they know how these things work. So those people can be huge assets. I just want to read a comment from Gareth as well. Throwback Max, from east to west, from north to south, the blob did try to hunt our Nigel out, but the blob was forced to go without. The they thems are Nigel's column. Okay. I know I messed that up really terribly. Sorry about that. But thanks for
You did good.
And then there's a second part, but it isn't great. You shouldn't ask me to do these things. I'm terrible. But it isn't great to see Ramoners and the bourgeoisie, the black and tans, and the Coots collaborators flee. The they thems are of Nigel's column. Of our Nigel's column, sorry.
Is that person's a poet?
Yes, and I've completely bastardized their poetry. Apologies.
Slightly, but it's still, we got the gist.
Thanks for that, Gareth.
Reading out poetry on your live stream, to be fair.
I'm no. I was going to say J.K. Rowling. I'm no Tolkien. I should say Tolkien. Huge fan of Tolkien. So let's move on to another topic, because of course flags were a big thing over the last number of days.
Wow.
People hanging flag. Did you hear the story about Reform UK? Actually, a council run by Reform UK who actually instructed the council workers to take down some bunting. It was Union Jack bunting. It seems to be. What happened was somebody had put up this bunting on a lamppost, but they had used a very strong type of cabling or wire or string.
Yes.
And there was a risk that if a truck had passed and caught it, it would rip down the lamppost and then, of course, cause some damage. So the Reform UK Council instructed council workers to take down the flag. What do you think about that? Just the whole thing about flags in general. Where is your flag, Tan? I don't see your flag.
The only thing I've got behind me is a fan that says "Bye, bitch" that I bought on the night of the general election, and it was being sold by the lady in the toilet. So I was like, "I'm having that." Where's my flag? I don't have a flipping flag. I have bought one though for the march on the 13th of September, Stand Up to Racism, the counter demo. I bought a massive Union Jack. And I'm going to write on it, "Through the middle, not the property of racists," and fly it at the rally.
This is something I've said before, and I've said it online to people. I say, it's your flag. Take back control. Use the Brexiteer language. Take back control of your flag, because this is the problem. The St. George's flag, the Union flag, it's your flag. There's no right that the right wing have no right to take control of this flag. And I've said, people may not feel comfortable. It's up to them to decide. But I think people who attend the counter demonstrations, they should take Union flags and flag of St. George's with them as well, and wave them proudly and say, this flag is our flag as well. You're not going to take ownership of it. Because it seems to be the case that the right-wing GB News and all are like, oh, you're patriotic if you wave the flag. Well then, surely if you're countering racism and you're waving the flag, you're just as patriotic. or
That's
if not more so.
precisely, well, more so, really,
Yeah.
because you're acknowledging the decline of your country rather than just ambling on and pretending that it's like a rose-tinted, non-existent 50s version.
Yes.
Yeah, that I'm very much going to do that. But do you remember culturally in the 90s, it was cool again.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't associated with the BNP or lager louts over, in Benidorm kicking the crap out of the locals when they lost the football and stuff like that. But that is sadly what it's been associated with. Like our flag has actually been desecrated by those men, and it's it's being done as a kind of intimidation tactic. It's an ownership thing. They're like, this is ours. And also, a lot of them are kind of saying, oh, well, you fly the Palestine flag, etc. To like the left, when they're standing up for a particular thing, when they're doing the protest, yeah, they might fly it because they're showing support for a particular country. And there's also a lot of people, immigrants that made this country that might have family or might have associations to that land. Which is where I think actually going back to earlier that there is a bit of a kind of problem with one issue parties. Yeah, it's not reached. I've not seen it in like my area here. There's not been an awful amount. On my street, the only flag that actually exists is a trans-inclusive pride flag that someone's got in their window at the end of the road. And that's been there for like a good year or two. But obviously there's the issue with the men that are going out doing this being very problematic. There was an incident in Basildon where men were rollering onto the side of a building
Yes.
and simultaneously racially abusing a woman and harassing women. And that says it all. Like, I know this type of man. I've grown up in Essex, unfortunately, all my life, and I've grown up in dirt poor parts of Essex. So I know exactly what the kind of mentality is behind these men. And they're the kind of men that would kind of like try and grope you when you were 14 years old with a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. These are the kind of football fans, the kind that are kind of usually recruited by the far right in the olden days via the old channels. Nowadays they don't need it. They've got the radicalization online. So it's definitely a marking territory. It's definitely intimidation. And they're weaponizing something because they lack identity in many ways, I think. Culture is passed on through community and through stories in communities. This isn't about being British for them. I think it's about having a identity crisis because there's
Yeah,
nothing
I
to be
agree.
proud of.
I agree
There's nothing.
100%. And you can see it in Northern Ireland, for example, in East Belfast or South Belfast, with the loyalist, the pro-British aspects of the culture there. They have flags everywhere. They have the curbs painted red, white, and blue. And it's I see it as a sort of desperation, because if you feel
Yeah.
proud about your own culture, you don't need to stick it in people's faces.
No.
You actually, it's something. It should be. I believe it should be something very personal. Celebrated together with people in a positive situation, like
Yeah.
during the Olympics or the football
Football.
or whatever. Yeah, and I think that's a really positive thing because it brings people together. But what's happening with the flags, putting them on lampposts and stuff, it's not about bringing people together. It's about stamping authority, saying this is my turf, and you're not allowed in, or we're going to push you out. We have a comment from Miss Paula Thomas. Thank you so much, Miss Paula. Do the far right realize that St. George was a Palestinian, and the flag is too? Yes, he was allegedly he was born in Palestine and he was persecuted as a Christian.
Sounds
So,
about right. But yeah, that's quite isn't it ironic, don't you think? It feels a lot to me like denial. It feels like they're living in denial because things aren't good here. Things have not been good for the last 14, 15 years. And that's how far right groups traditionally tend to prosper, when out of a period of decline, out of a period of desperation, out of deprivation. And that's why I think we're starting to see this kind of coming out. It's a lack of anything else to do or hope for, because we have been absolutely destroyed and robbed blind by the Conservatives. And that's why it's so enraging to me to see people turning to basically the new Conservatives, but with added racism. And it's so infuriating to me to see the far right capitalising opportunistically on these people, because they're not, evidently you're not happy if you're going out vandalizing your own town
Yeah.
with this kind of like mad flag shagger mentality. You're not doing well. People that are doing all right for themselves don't feel the need to do that. So it's like they're just being conned again. Like our friend Aid in the chat said the other day, like if he'd known that people were this like easily led or stupid, he'd have invested in more pyramid schemes. And I'm like, it is a little bit magic beans, because people don't question, unfortunately, because and also the far right populists really know their audience. They know they're time poor, they know they're cash poor, they know that they're probably less likely to research, and they also know that unfortunately conspiracy theories are a win-win situation for them. And when people believe anything, they're more likely to believe the bullshit they come out with. So it's just, hate the con man, not the con doesn't really apply as readily, but it is still a factor. These people are being massively swindled. And yeah, we're all laughing at them. I am, otherwise I'll just be enraged at the racism of it. But it's translating from online into real life violence again. And that's why what Labour's failing to do is unforgivable. Like their inaction is unforgivable.
We have a comment from Peter. Thanks so much, Peter. Peter says, give the flags to the immigrants in hotels so they can fly them out the windows in the faces of the racists. A brilliant idea. Yeah, I'd like to see how GB News and Talk TV respond to that. How dare these immigrants wave our flag? That's our flag. Give it back. Now I'm interested in also. So what do you think the Labour Party, the Labour government should be doing in response? We can come back to this as well, but in response to Farage, in response to the far right, they seem to be, and I don't want to be, how can I say, unkind to them, but they seem to be pandering or attempting to pander to Farage and the far right when it comes to issues like immigration. You probably know Zoe Gardner. I spoke to her recently as well, and she's a huge advocate of creating safe routes for people to come in, so that they don't. So they don't have to rely on these small boats. And then if you did that, it would take away this lightning rod issue that Farage and others are rallying around, because they keep saying, look at the boats, and of course we know 5% is about 5% of all immigration is through these small unsafe routes. So if you close that down, while it wouldn't stop immigration very little, it would at least take away this lightning rod. I was wondering, what's your take on that? Should Labour be encouraged to look for alternatives as opposed to just smashing the gangs, or do you think that this is all they have left?
I'm really worried that they're also using it as a weapon of distraction, even though it's harming them too. But it all comes back to like Brexit, doesn't it? The Dublin regulation, like asylum seekers haven't changed; it's the rules have, and Farage is responsible for the very problem that he is trying to claim to be the solution to.
Yes.
Because we could actually send them back before if we wanted to. Like it wasn't straightforward, but it all comes back to kind of like realignment with the EU, which I think Labour's they're doing a better job of being an ally to the EU. But for me, everything begins, and I'm quite hard line on this. This is like the hill I'm dying on at the moment. Social media and media regulation. Without that, they're not going to be on top of the message. Without that, they're not going to get anywhere anyway, because you're still going to have people like the Telegraph and the Mail printing lies, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, when they're eventually dragged over the coals, printing a tiny retraction at the back. The message and the lie is already out there. So, and again, like, as I said earlier, like I feel that people are massively radicalized. So until you start finding a way to stop the radicalization sources, you're going to be fighting a losing battle. You're going to be pouring like a little jug on a fire. You're not going to make any inroads with it, because every day people are going to be believing more and more crap. So you've got to kind of like focus on it. Maybe they could focus on it from like if they're too scared to have any vision, they could do it from like a security perspective, like foreign interference perspective. Yes. Because a lot of it is foreign interference. But anything would be better than nothing, like saying it's wrong, taking a stand and sticking to it, speeding up the realignment with Europe, speeding up some form of like Brexit's reversing Brexit's too tall an order and too high a hope at this point. It would take a long time, but they need to do something that is oppositional. And as you were saying earlier, with that, the way that they come across as media trained in their interviews and lack humanity because they're too scared to veer from topic. I don't think that's just not being human. I think it's because they don't have a fucking clue what Starmer's vision is. Nobody does. He's just being advised by insane spads that don't seem to have a Scooby, what the public's thinking or what's right for the public. And like I described it as like a Jonestown situation. They're drinking the Kool-Aid that's going to kill them as a party, and they're bringing us all down with them.
That's a good point. Yes, I like the maybe I like the comparison. Maybe like isn't the right word, but
it fits.
it fits. It's a very good comparison. We have a comment from Christy. Thank you so much, Christy. What a waste of a summer for people and their children. Very sad for them as well as the asylum seekers. Yes, as the the people going out to these protests, bringing children with them when they could have actually spent the day in the park or at the beach or something like that.
Well, Essex is an example of that. I shared it in the chat earlier, didn't I? Essex is the place where most kids are excluded for racism. And I'm not surprised whatsoever that that's the case. And loads of kids are being dragged into this, and it's just grim behaviour. It's like really grim because they're going to grow up to be racist. They will copy their parents, and that's more common in poorer families too.
Yeah.
Because you tend to not cut the apron strings as much. You might not go off to uni. You might stay at home longer if you're poorer, and you're going to be exposed to those awful viewpoints, aren't you? It's just depressing.
Yeah, I just like to come back also to what you were saying before about the people that are within the Labour Party, and they're going to bring everyone down. It seems to me that it's like they don't know what they're doing. As you said, there isn't a vision. So is it a case of Keir Starmer needs to come up with a vision, or do you think it has to be a case that Starmer has to go and somebody like Angela Rayner needs to come in because maybe she has a vision? Like, is it too late to have a vision now for Starmer? Because I think his polling is terrible, and I don't think the polling of the leader is all that important. I think it's more about the party. But if he becomes a drag, I've said before, if he becomes a drag on the party, with the next elections or a by-election or something like that, there will be calls for him to go because they'll say, well, he's the problem. Do you think things would improve if maybe Angela Rayner is the top of the list to replace him? Maybe Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting. Do you see things improving if he were to go, or do you think Labour need to stick with him but come up with a vision?
Well, they're getting a spanking, aren't they? Like, he's a 20% versus 35 in some polls, and on one poll it was 41% trust Farage on immigration and only 14% for Starmer. The problem that we also have is that historically Labour don't get rid of their prime ministers. They're not like the Tories. They will have an ineffectual prime minister in post forever. With Rayner, we have the issue of the rampant misogyny that's directed at her, and they've still not made misogyny a hate crime. Wes Streeting is hated by a lot of progressive people because of his attitudes towards LGBT rights, especially trans people. So you would probably get, if you didn't, I think Rayner would do a great job. I think I would really like to see what her vision is. I don't think it's too late for him to have a vision. I think he's got until the next locals to turn it around. He's got until May to make some improvements. If he doesn't, then I think it could be a forced situation. I don't know. We've never been in a situation like this where a Labour government has come to power and the leader has been this unpopular. It's really quite rare. Like other Labour leaders in the past, I mean, you look back at Tony Blair, he was loved. But it was a massively different time. So we'd have our own kettle of fish of problems with Rayner in terms of the misogyny and the tabloids and etc. If she had the balls to implement media regs, then that would probably take the heat off it a little bit. Streeting would be a disaster, unfortunately, because he would just be continuity Starmer to some extent. But it'd be interesting to see at least what someone else's ideas are. We're lacking ideas. If he took a stand and grew a pair and he knows this is wrong. He's a bloody human rights lawyer. He knows that what's going on is wrong. So there's often this belief that not only he's not very believable in terms of what he believes, but as a human being, he doesn't seem believable. Like, you know that he's a football fan, but you don't quite believe it. You think he's having you on. Like, it doesn't seem genuine. There's like a genuine deficit in him. And that in itself creates a vacuum,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Like when you said there about a human rights lawyer, like what would it cost him? Like, he's already unpopular. The Labour is extremely unpopular. What would it cost him to come out and say, fuck you, Farage? You know, not in that language, but basically, fuck you,
I'd love
Farage.
him to say that.
Yeah, I actually said, you know, during PMQs, he should have said something like, for fuck's sake, Boris, and then said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. And then this would grab people's attention, and then people were like, wow, you know, he's actually quite human. No, but if he came out with something like, no, we actually believe that refugees have a right to be here. We believe that immigrants are a positive to this country. They work in our NHS, and we're going to stand up for them. And I, as Prime Minister, I'm going to stand up for them. You know, are there bad people within this group? Yes, there are, because there are bad people in every aspect of society. But I'm going to take a stand here as a human rights lawyer. I built a career on this, and this is what I believe. And if he actually said that, even though it would be unpopular with a lot of people, I think a lot of other people would say, finally, we actually understand, because we don't even know what allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not, but allegedly he has one of his team go and buy him breakfast because he doesn't want to be seen in a bar or restaurant, in a cafe, buying breakfast himself, because people are like, oh, he likes chocolate muffins, not blueberry muffins. Like, because somebody might go, oh, no, this is alleged. This is from, I think it was Times Radio was saying this. And
I wouldn't be surprised though.
But no, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is what he does. Like, surely... Go meet with people. Like, if you go into a cafe, people are like, there's the Prime Minister. Have a chat with them. Farage has no problem doing that. Go in and ask people, like, what, you know, I'm doing a pretty bad job. What would you like me to do instead? Listen to people. You know, you're not going, you have a security, you know, cohort with you, but at least interact with people. Let me tell you, now, I don't know if this was really true or not, but this is a story that went around in Ireland when I was there many years ago. The Taoiseach at the time, Bertie Ahern, deeply corrupt. But what he would do every Thursday night was he'd go to the local pub and he'd have a pint without any security guards or anything.
Wow.
And you could go up to him and have a chat with him, but you couldn't talk about policy or politics. So he would say, you can sit down, have a chat about things, but I'm not going to be your MP. I'm not going to listen to you like as in a constituency position, because I have my surgery. If you have problems, you go there. But if you want to sit down and have a chat about football or something, we can do that. Now, I don't know if this is true. Maybe it's an urban legend, and somebody in the chat can confirm whether it's true or not. But if Starmer did that,
yes,
I think it could actually improve his standing. Once again, I'm not a personality type of person. I think in policy is more important. But what would it cost? Would it actually cost him anything? Of course not. He's extremely popular. People would say, wait a minute, he's actually down the pub. People would go down there and go, okay, and ask him. People would shout at him probably. But if he did it all the time, the people ranting and raving would give up eventually.
Yeah.
And then people would actually go in and say, Prime Minister, like, why do you like Arsenal? Why don't you like, Liverpool? I don't know. I'm not a football person.
I get it. Like, even the pictures that you see of him enjoying the football look so clinical.
Yeah.
It looks so carefully staged. And he seems to have this kind of like fear of interacting with people. And that comes across. It's almost like a kind of like, I don't know. I get why he's a bit misanthropic. I am, to be honest with you, now more than ever.
But you're not. But you're not trying to be Prime Minister. That's the thing.
I'm not trying to be Prime Minister, but I don't think I do a bad job of connecting with people, right? And you've got to put and it comes with backlash. And I know I'm not the Prime Minister. I'm just a bloody YouTuber, but it comes with backlash, right? Which you should expect. You put your vision out there, you're going to get backlash, but you've got to believe. Even if people don't like me, for example, they know that I believe in what I'm talking about. People respect you when you stand up for what you believe. And what I think that he's doing is he's hiding and he's being tentative and he's not really quite sure which approach to take, and he's got some very bad advisors which he is following to the T, I think,
Yeah.
because he is a very inexperienced politician. This isn't his natural setting. So he needs to coin a kind of crude phrase, shit or get off the pot at this point. He needs to like go, right, okay, I'm going to go balls to the wall. I'm going to say what I think about this. I'm going to take a stand for what is right, because I've got nothing to lose. As we say, at
Exactly.
this point, he has got nothing to lose. He is fucked either way, possibly. So why not go out in a blaze of glory and say what you want to be said, stand up for what you know, because he knows Farage is an arsehole. He knows the far right are scum. Like, we all
But
do.
yeah, but he has to do it. But he has to do it now, not like Rishi Sunak. Because I had a huge amount of respect for Rishi Sunak on the last day he was prime minister, or when he left, because he actually stood up in the House of Commons and he said, "Look, I want to congratulate the leader of the opposition. He was very kind to me, and we had our disagreements, and he was very polite and human about it.
Briefly.
Very, yeah, for about 5 minutes. But like I had respect for him for that, because I asked myself, I asked the channel, I think, I don't know if it was a live stream or a video, but I asked, why didn't you do this before? Like one of the, I don't want to go off on a tangent too much, but something I really hate about PMQs is the theatre of it. I would love for, an MP to ask a question and a minister or prime minister to say, oh, that's actually a good question. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is what people actually want to hear. It's not like, oh, well, you last time when you were in power, you did this, haha, and we are going to do much better than you because you were a failure. And I hate the theatre of it, because it's completely, it's like bless you, it's like it's like a Oxford Union debating chamber or something like that.
It's archaic. It's out of touch with regular people's lives. Regular people sit there and they don't understand what all this bullshit is about. Just like when they go into a court and there's like the elitism of people wearing stupid wigs. It's like, the problem is also with that comes the fact that not only does it look ridiculous and it doesn't land with people, but it just doesn't work anymore. It's not made for these times. People are abusing it. Our kind of really meager, not quite a constitution wasn't ever designed with scoundrels in mind. So it's based on this kind of honour and handshakes and all that bollocks. And the opening of Parliament's frankly embarrassing. Like, what we need is a complete shake-up of how things are done and a complete change of how things are done. But the problem is with the British, Doug Stanhope makes that joke about how, the Nazis tried to help you. They tried to knock down everything, but you put back everything brick by brick. Exactly, with your confusing streets. You could have had blocks. You've got your stupid, confusing streets. This is the problem. We're resistant to like any form of change or any form of improvement or modernization. We've still got people that believe they're gifts from gods and have a superior bloodline ruling over us, for Christ's sake,
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, I mean, me and
I'm
you
not
are
the
very
right person.
aligned. We're very aligned, yeah. But yeah, this is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a comment from Free Frag UK who says, Keir Starmer advocated for genocide, so much for human rights. There's also a comment from Miss Paula Thomas again. Thank you so much, Miss Paula, and thanks, Free Frag. Streeting will lose his seat at the next general election. Yeah, there are a lot of comments. I'm trying to put a lot of them
very
together.
Barely.
Yeah, it was like 500 votes or something like that. The election is still a long way away, so it could.
Yes.
If he became leader, it would probably turn things around somewhat. I'm a little bit skeptical of some of the poll. Like, I understand the polling is putting Farage at winning 300 seats or something like that, but I'm a bit skeptical because it's so far away and there's still a lot of time to turn things around.
And they're not all very representative polls either, and they're not all showing their sources, so it's but it is, and also there's the illusion of mass consensus, isn't there? So and there's a lot of like dodgy think tanks going about pretending that they're impartial when they're actually reform activists, so it's just one big psyop.
We have another one from Viper Scott says, thank you, Max. Supertanskii, great to get live. Really enjoying, and bravo.
Thank you.
I'm a wee bit biased for you too. Bravo. Okay, thanks. There's no problem with that. We have a few fans on the show. We're almost at the end, so And I forgot to mention at the beginning. So where can we find you online, Supertan?
Oh, I'm here on YouTube. So it's Supertanskii, Three Eyes, Tansky. That was my nickname when I was younger. Tansky, not the super bit. And I'm also on Twitter for now, far right app. I'm on Threads. I do quite a lot on Threads. I do Instagram for fun. And I occasionally post on TikTok. I'm also on Blue Sky. So I've got, yeah, I'm on all these. I'm on all in most good shops. Most of the
Yeah, I
places where
like
you
it.
expect to find someone.
I remember that in all good record stores and
All
stuff
good
like that.
record stores, yes.
We have Wee Scott's dog. Thank you so much, Wee Scott's dog, for that comment. Says Reform enjoy a flag a day. The Tories love them too. Patriotic street parties and next door and next day in the loo. Yes, well, what they get up to with those flags, I really don't want to know.
I shag them.
Yeah, okay. There was another
Sorry.
comment that no, but it's true. Somebody said, Philip says here, Angela Rayner would be a disaster as she's not got a backbone to be prime minister. I don't know if I agree with that. She's quite a strong character. Yeah.
She was a carer. She was a teenage mum, single mum, a carer, joined a union, became head of the union, joined the Labour Party, worked her way up to deputy leader, and she came from like abject poverty and a mum that was like a depressive. I think she was depressed, possibly an addict. She's pulled herself up from nothing to be where she is. I've got enormous respect for her, so I respectfully disagree on that.
No, me too. There's I heard a rumor about Max and Mankini. Okay, no, we're not going down that road.
What have you been up to, Max?
We almost get those people posting in here. There's a comment that says, me and my sister watch Adolescence Netflix together. No joke. She's a feminist and calls me far right via text every hour. I'm not sure what that's about. Did you bring some strange people onto this live stream?
I have not. I mean, I can't be responsible for this, I don't think.
As somebody says, stop the yachts. We should stop
the yachts. I mean, the orcas are trying to. The orcas are sinking billionaires' yachts, aren't they? Like a bunch of legends. Nothing brings people together like that, I tell you. Like Luigi.
Yes, we better not go down that road either.
No.
So we're almost at the end of this live stream for tonight. So I want to say a huge thank you to Supertanskii for coming on. Supertanskii, is there anything you'd like to say before we finish? It was wonderful having you on talking about Farage and flags and the wonderful charisma of Keir Starmer.
Charisma vacuum, isn't it? Not really. I mean, the only thing that I would say is like keep trying to talk to the people in your life. Like if they're on the cusp of sharing this material, please try and talk to them and try and get them to look at kind of people that just take the mick, or people like us who make videos independently, and put them in touch with some good investigative journalists, and try and keep having conversations with people, because more and more people are falling to like the radicalization of this nonsense, and it's only through forging communities and cutting out the isolation and that we can try and intervene on this. So yeah, keep having those conversations, keep talking to people, as hippie as it sounds. One love, etc.
No, I agree.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there are some people who are too far gone that you'll never be able to reach. But generally, you know, family, friends, try and reach out to them, because they'll be more likely to listen to you than to maybe someone on social media, we hope. We have another comment from Art from Hells, who says, who came up with the flags as an idea, do you think? The man-child in the street, or the upper level shit stirrers? It's an interesting question. Where do you this whole flag thing just suddenly appeared from nowhere? Where do you think this came from? Do you think it was?
It's not bottom up. It's traditionally always been top down. Like it's always been that way. That's how it's always been with the other historic rise that you've seen in the past of the far right breeding support out of deprivation and disillusionment. this in this case, it's kind of, I think it's a lot of kind of like radicalization, and it's also the fact that they're turning up to disgustingly protest outside hotels instead of outside number 10, which is
Yes.
where they should be if they want to protest, with these flags. So they're asserting themselves and intimidating people in that way, and then people just ran with it. I think it's quite a spontaneous thing. I don't think it was pushed by anyone in particular, but it's historically always been used by, the National Front and people in the past to push this crap. So a bit from column A, a bit from column B.
No, I agree. And just before we finish, we have a comment from Ruth who says, cheers and thanks, Max and Tan. I wait more from both of you. And certainly
Oh,
we'll be having it down the line as soon as possible. So I'll have to end there. Thank you so much, Tan. Thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for your support, and thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Make sure to check out Supertan's YouTube channel and social media, and make sure to subscribe to her. Wonderful stuff. And you have a live stream. How often do you do the live stream?
once a week on a Sunday, the
Perfect.
Sunday service. It's normally on a Sunday evening, but I'm going to be doing a far right one because look at the state of things. So probably moving forward, maybe on a Wednesday.
Cool. Okay, we'll check you out. So have a great one, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.